Super Bowl's over. The Chiefs have moves to make, and the first domino to fall should be Jawan Taylor coming at you today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. Thanks for making us your first listen here on Locked On Chiefs, your daily podcast with the Kansas City Chiefs on the #1 sports podcast network out there, the Locked On Network. Thank you very much. You everydayers, you already know that stuff. Thank you for being an everydayer. And if you want to be one, get ad-free audio and get in our Discord where only Chiefs fans are at. You can join that Everydayer Club. Check that out at lockedonchiefs.supercast.com. We have a great show for you. It's just the ramblings here, the beginnings of what this offseason is going to be. Matt Derrick is here from ChiefsDigest.com to kind of set us straight on what we might start to expect. You can find him at ChiefsDigest.com. Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform, as well as 41 is the mic, along with his partner, Nick, always breaking it down. And I'm breaking it down, too. You can find me over at NFL 33, where we just put out a piece on what this schedule should look like and surviving the NFL calendar, just how challenging it is. So check out that, as well as RGR Football. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting. You can find that, too, as the Combine's only a couple of weeks away. The Athletic Matrix will come from that event. And then go over and check out Chris at KC Chiefs Corner because he's doing the work there as well. We are always here, Chris and I, for 9 years. Matt with us for 8 on and off at this point. And the first offseason that we've had where we have to deal with free agency leading into a top 10 pick. Never had to deal with that scenario before, so we're going to get to it. What's the first domino to fall to set up that whole process? Who should be first on the list? You've heard my idea. We'll see what the guys think. Then we're going to come back and really try to set what the minefield is that Brett Veach and the front office have to navigate here in avoiding mistakes this offseason. And the bottom line is, how do you prepare for the start of a season, possibly without Patrick Mahomes? What do you do at quarterback? That's later in the show. Want to start with you, Matt. Welcome back in, as always. And I am convinced that the Chiefs generally try to help vets out. I think they should just go ahead, pull this trigger on the Jawan Taylor issue and make the cut. Let him get out there and start talking to people, because I don't see any possible way that he should be on this roster this season. Am I missing anything?
No, you're not missing anything. And that's a move that could absolutely come sooner than later. You know, a lot of these moves, things like that, especially ones with like Jawaan, where he's got a year left, so any move you made right now is, it's not going to affect how it hits. He doesn't need to be a June 1st cut, nothing of that nature. So, oftentimes it seems like the Chiefs make those moves maybe right after the Combine, especially after, of course, notably that Andy Reid and Brett Veach have already spoken at the Combine. So, you're probably talking about early March when the first dominoes start to be made. And yeah, I mean, Jawaan with his contract is obviously the biggest cap casualty that possibility out there.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that it's going to be a move that gets done. And as Matt said, it's just kind of a matter of time at this point. It's not going to be something where it's really going to take anybody by surprise. I can't see any way, shape, or form that he is back in Kansas City in 2026, and may as well give him an extra little bit of time to get started and looking free agency. Helps for the future as well as the current situation. I am going to be curious, though, when you start looking at some of the other moves that they make, is there anybody else, Matt, that sticks out to you that you think that they could be looking to move on from that would make a lot of sense to get done in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's the ones making sense is kind of the interesting, part of that equation and everything, because, hey, Trent McDuffie, if you're going to do anything with Trent McDuffie, it could happen before the end of the new league year, but more than likely that would happen after. If there's a trade of any sort that you want to try and work out, that would happen after that. There'll be some speculation, I'm sure, from some quarters that the Chiefs might walk on from a Jaylen Moore or a Christian Fulton. I honestly don't think they're going to walk away from either one of those players. I think they're probably going to keep them. They're certainly going to keep Jaylen Moore because they're planning on him being their starter at right tackle, and they want his veteran experience. But you saw what happened with Christian Fulton at the end of the season. I think he's going to stick around. I think you have to get down all the way to probably like the likes of Mike Dana and Drew Tranquill before you get some questions about players that the Chiefs might walk away from. Dana's one that they could save about $7 million in cap space. That's a fair amount. I mean, especially for an edge run defender. I think, the Chiefs obviously love Mike Dana. Could you get him back at a lower price? Possibly. Could you just move a different direction because you need more focus on your pass rush? Possibly. But there's not, to me, a ton of other, potential cap casualty moves. Maybe some small ones, but I don't think anything that really stand out as major.
And I think, as you mentioned about Moore, he's got to be in the plans long term. Just even if he doesn't win this battle, and we know we had some injury concerns last year, if they choose to bring in another right tackle to compete with him, I think that's still great, because I'm still on the plan that they have to have a minimum of 4 guys that they feel can start in this league in order to make it through a season of attrition like they've seemed to have had year after year after year after year. That can get expensive, Matt. So in keeping Jaylen Moore, do you think an addition is something they need to have, they could have? Is it just a luxury, or should they avoid adding any tackle depth, say in the draft or certainly in free agency? How do you read it?
We always talk about when you go to the draft, what teams are looking for. And, obviously Brett Veach doesn't want to be a guy who is going into the draft where he needs to draft a starter, that he needs to draft somebody who's going to play at that spot for the upcoming year. So for 2026, they've got their starters. But the second most important thing that you're looking at for the draft is you're looking at the following season. So you're looking at 2027 and who's going to be your starters. Jaylen Moore's not under contract. He was signed as a stopgap solution. You got step one of that with Josh Simmons. Now you need the next step. And more than likely, I think that the Chiefs, one of two solutions. One is, whether or not they truly regard Esapole as a future NFL starter, particularly at right tackle. They might consider that. But the other possibility is, whether or not they get a tackle in the draft that comes to them at a spot where they're sitting, where they like the talent that's available. They might pull a trigger there. So I can't rule out that the Chiefs won't draft a tackle with the prospect that could be somebody who would be your third or fourth tackle their rookie year and then potentially start at right tackle in year 2. That's a distinct possibility, but I don't think I'd be very, very surprised if the Chiefs spend any, free agent money resources addressing tackle this year.
The biggest problem with that is if they try to spend money at tackle, is that is an extremely expensive position, regardless if it's right tackle or left tackle, and the Chiefs don't have any money right now. So that is one of the bigger issues that they're going to face. And I would argue, and Ryan and I have actually talked about this, I would argue that it would almost be in the best interest of Kansas City to almost have something happen like it happened last year for them, where they expect Jaylen Moore is going to be their starting right tackle, but they go into the draft and somebody falls into their lap that they didn't expect to be there. And if that happens and you get a starting right tackle, Jaylen Moore is a great swing. I have no problem with him being a swing tackle in 2026. And that, solidifies giving you the ability to have, Esapole as your fourth tackle and go into the season as having 4 guys that you feel can at least play at this level.
Yeah, and obviously that's one of the upsides of the Chiefs' disaster of a 2025 is that they got to play Esapole a little bit. They got him back in the first place.
Yeah.
But they got to see Chu Godric too. And honestly, hey, Chu Godric is your fourth tackle. That's not the worst thing in the world. There are teams in the NFL with worse 4 tackles than Chu Godric. So,
Ryan disagrees.
And you mentioned, well, I'll fight you on that one, Chris. But if you're fighting over the 4th tackle, you don't have many problems to worry about.
True.
We probably have other things to worry about.
That's true.
But you pointed out that, hey, it's an expensive proposition, and that's why, hey, in the draft you want to address the expensive propositions. You want to address cornerback. You want to address defensive end and offensive tackle. Those are the spots you have to hit. But last year, the Chiefs in free agency, they had a couple of different choices, and honestly, they hit the right one because Jaylen Moore was not the most expensive tackle, but I think he was a better signing than some of the others, like Dan Moore, who made more money than he did, and a couple of the other signings.
And then that's what you got to avoid, is just not making that colossal mistake that sets the whole offseason back. They have to do that yet again, and that means not overspending in 2 positions, wide receiver and edge rusher. That's coming up next.
If you've ever hired somebody who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. If I need to hire someone for this show, I go straight to Indeed to be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a higher than non-sponsored jobs. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners to the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Have we got a deal for you? If you don't want to listen to other ads, you can go get onto our Everydayer Club, and you won't have to any longer. You also get into our exclusive Discord just for Locked On Chiefs fans. You can do it all by signing up at lockedonchiefs.supercast.com for our Everydayer Club. Now, every day I go through permutations, shall we call it, Matt, scenarios, harebrained, tinfoiled or not, and avoiding mistakes is job number one. And there's a myriad of them. We've seen some of them be made on this team in the past. And I know we didn't talk about Patrick Mahomes. I expect Patrick Mahomes to have some kind of augmentation to his deal about 12 hours before the new league year starts. So we'll just deal with that as it comes. And in the meantime, we have to avoid the pitfalls of falling in love, of overreaching in the draft. This is a really strange year to have a top 10 pick for this team. So what do they have to do for preparing for that? Is it just frugality? Is it making sure that you're hitting marks that you don't think you're going to address in the draft? Does that mean you're prioritizing running back? Where do you start? What's the number one mistake for you that you want to see them avoid this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, before Patrick Mahomes' injury, I would have said that it's spending money in the wrong place at wide receiver. But I think you have to be at least a little bit cautious about spending too much money on a backup quarterback to replace Mahomes. Not saying that you can't bring in a quality starter, but, and I don't think that Brett Veach, I certainly don't get the impression that he's looking to spend, first of all, he can't spend a lot of money. He don't have a lot to spend. So you can't put all of it into a backup quarterback. I mean, you're going to have to either live with the most affordable and the best choice of maybe some bad choices, or you're going to have to hope that somebody's going ring shopping and that they want to come to Kansas City because they know that they got a chance to play a little bit and then maybe get a ring. And, right now, I'm not sure. If the Chiefs have to go with a free agent from the current class of quarterbacks, I don't know who it'll be. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit later, so I'll probably focus a little bit more on talking about the receiver issue right now. But I think that's going to be the thing. I know there's going to be a lot of Chiefs fans who are like, hey, go out and get a big name receiver and a big free agent receiver. I mean, again, the Chiefs don't have the money, thank goodness, to spend $30 million a year on a George Pickens or anything. And they shouldn't. I mean, that would be a disaster. But, hey, again, I don't know if Mike Evans is going to go ring shopping since he's already got one. But, if that's a guy that you could get below market rate because he wants to go to a winner where he's got a chance, I know we're talking about a team that was 6-11, but players are still going to say, hey, wait a minute, if I can go play with Patrick Mahomes, there's a chance to win a ring. But I think the Chiefs are going to have to be a little bit more affordable and go down the list. And that's the thing. I mean, every year there are receivers out there that you can find that are affordable, that are just overlooked, that are guys that maybe are coming off their rookie contracts that they didn't excel in, that you can capitalize on. There's going to be some players that fall through the cracks. I don't know that and again, there'll be some more cap casualties, so there will be some that hit this market that may become available. But, to me, Jawan Jennings, the year to get him was last year. If you could have signed him and stolen him away from the 49ers as a restricted free agent, and I'm still surprised that nobody tried to. Those are the moves that I would be making and below the radar moves because Honestly, I mean, overpaying for free agent receivers. I mean, you're going to be tempted to overpay for maybe an Alec Pierce or a Debo Samuel, you know, and maybe some guys even on third contracts, fourth contracts. I'm not sure that like a Christian Kirk's a great fit for the Chiefs or anything like that. I think they need to bring in some new faces at receiver. I'm just not sure that any of them are the big names that you're probably thinking of.
Well, and the problem that you're going to run into is you go back to the money issue. Sure, you can make a long-term deal work because you drop the number at the start of the contract. I get that, but that's generally still not going to get you a great wide receiver or somebody that you are going to throw in and go, hey, that's our guy. That's our big name guy now. Like, you're not going to get that for $5 or $6 million a year on the first year contract. So I don't know that this is a position group that they really can afford to go and try to get that guy. And that's not a great scenario for him to be in. But the reality is the positions that they really need to focus on and try to improve are defensive end, defensive tackle, and wide receiver, and not to mention running back. But all those, I mean, other than running back, all the rest of them are going to be pretty expensive. Maybe you can go get a free agent running back that isn't going to be expensive, that will come in and give you much better production than what you had last year. But I don't see being able to fit defensive tackle, defensive end, or wide receiver in that, not with the money they have available right now.
Yeah, and both of those positions are going to be interesting ones because I mean, I do believe that right now, if I had to project it, I'd say that the Chiefs probably have 4 or 5 new faces on the defensive line come week
They need
one
it.
of the season. And, exactly. And some of that's complicated because, you really don't know about Norman Lott and where he's going to fall in. You do know that if you're the Chiefs, you need a true one tech, you need a true nose tackle. And if you're the Chiefs, I mean, you really, if you're bringing back Mike Pennell and Derek Nottie in 2026, I think you're admitting that you're not taking the step forward that you need. I mean, even if one of those guys is your last guy on the bench and they're your backup nose, I guess you could be okay with that. But you certainly need to be at a point in this place where that's no longer your starter. And hey, signing again a big name defensive tackle like that's going to cost you. You probably can't
Mhm.
afford. And with your lineup and who you've got, you really can't offer anybody on a defensive end a starting role. I mean, you're kind of already there as far as Karlaftis goes, and if you bring back Dana, and you've got Ashton Gelati that you want to continue to develop. So there's a lot of things that you're gonna have to fit into that. And again, it's what are you bringing in, and how can you lure some free agents to come in if they don't see a starting spot for them? And hey, a defensive tackle, if you're a pass rushing defensive tackle, why are you coming to Kansas City? Because you know that you're going to be on the field with Chris Jones, and if Chris Jones is on the field, you're probably not on the field.
It's a tough one. And the one guy that needs to come to town but knows the end of the line is going to be short is the backup quarterback. Who's that going to be? Well, he's not on the roster yet. We're going to tell you who next.
The winter games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the winter games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense very fast. Speed skating races decided by inches. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. Even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game.
This comes down to a couple of things, and we just got to cover it all tomorrow. Don't miss the show. We're going to be talking about the AFC West and some of the changes going on there, what to watch for, a number of other aspects of what's going on around this one season where the Chiefs are down. Everybody's trying to take advantage of it. I'm trying to take advantage of this time to figure out exactly what they should do at quarterback. I can tell you one thing, Matt. Of the quarterbacks under contract, including Jake Hader and Chris Oladokun, the answer isn't here yet. Not happy. The question becomes, no matter who it is, who falls through the cracks, should this be a spending limited application for a backup quarterback, or it should be like we've seen in the past, somebody that they feel can grow into not only a veteran role, but somebody that can back Pat up later if they really feel that they're still in a playoff stretch or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the quarterbacks right now who are slated to be free agents, and hey, Daniel Jones is the guy who's gonna break the bank somewhere. Even if he stays with the Colts, he'll get paid. Honestly, I mean, there's nobody else that I'm paying to go get. I mean, I'm not paying Marcus Mariota. I'm not bringing in Aaron Rodgers. Russell Wilson. God forgive me, Joe Flacco. I mean, there's none of these names that are like that. These are guys that you need to be bringing in if you're the Chiefs. And even if you start looking at cap casualties, I mean, there's only two potential ones that I think I would have serious interest in. And again, these would have to be guys who are ring shopping and maybe, and one in particular trying to reinvent their career. One been kind of connected to the Chiefs a little bit in Kirk Cousins. And that's a guy I could see, fitting in reasonably well and being a placeholder. He just have to want it, and you would think that Kirk Cousins, considering there's nothing on the fingers yet, might be willing to do that. I don't know if Kyler Murray at this point in his career is willing to do that because he can go out and get bank. He can get paid. So he may want to do that. But, he came and, played for a year with Andy Reid and backed up Mahomes and maybe played for him a little bit. That could probably enhance his career. But then you start looking around, guys, and, does Justin Fields or Jacoby Brissett? I mean, Jameis Winston would interest me for one reason and one reason only, and that's because he is entertaining as a all get out. But Andy Dalton, I mean, no, I mean, none of these names are particularly enjoyable as, potential quarterbacks to watch play with this team. So it's going to be tough. And, no, I don't think that Chris Oladokun is going to be the starter. Jake Haener could entertain people, but, otherwise, are we looking at door number 3? Are we looking at maybe some guys who are completely off the radar? Or, talked about earlier, the Chiefs maybe find a quarterback that they like, that maybe an early day 3 pick that they feel like that they can immediately play and maybe groom to be a long-term backup to Mahomes, or do what Andy Reid used to do, which is flip later on for more draft picks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I look at this and it's really hard for me to look at it and see anybody that is on this list that is really going to make you feel, hey, they can step in and win a game or two. And you start talking about some of the older guys. Kirk Cousins makes sense if he's willing to take a low tier contract, but what is he going to be willing to take? Now, the other side on that is, could he take something that would be highly incentivized? Like if he plays and wins 3 or 4 games. I mean, maybe that's a scenario that could entice him, but there's no real names here. And this goes back to kind of what I've talked about before when it comes to the QB situation. This is another reason why the Chiefs should be trying to draft a quarterback to back up Patrick Mahomes. Use the cost savings that you can and go draft somebody and have somebody that you can develop.
Yeah, it's certainly a philosophy that Andy Reid's had since he got to Kansas City, that whether it just hasn't been a legitimate philosophy that hasn't been tested until now, or this was just a bad confluence of events, because they had a lot of other problems going on. But Andy Reid has consistently wanted to have a veteran around that if they did lose their starting quarterback, that they could still win some football games. They'd at least be a 500 team and, at least keep the show running until the starter comes back and not torpedo your playoff chances. I mean, this has not been the Colts with Peyton Manning, where they just don't bother with a backup quarterback because they don't plan to play and win games with a backup quarterback. The Chiefs have planned to do that. Now, did this season change their philosophy a little bit on that? I don't know if it will or not. I mean, and it's entirely possible that you end up with both, that you end up with the Chiefs bringing back a veteran quarterback that they feel like that can win some games for them if they had to, or is an emergency, and that they do have a backup quarterback that's somebody with a little bit more upside that they could grow and develop.
I think it's worth trying that. And I do think that this is a class that is just honestly a group of flyers that are going to be taken all over the place. There'll be quarterbacks that are pushed up into day 2 that don't belong there. So the question really becomes, when do you pull the trigger on that, and what will be left in the barrel? I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot, but I am a proponent of that as well. The thing that I'm also a proponent of, and there's a lot of folks running around about who should be what, if the pass rushers are gone at the top, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's prime picking to add and supplement whatever this quarterback position is with a stout run game. You can do that maybe in day 3 as well. I don't know about the top, but at least in the 5th round, you could start to look at that as well. And I think it's about making a plan, Matt, that protects the quarterback position, not just whoever that guy is until Patrick returns.
Yeah, and the nightmare scenario, if you're me, with that number 9 pick, is that, and here's a reality of it, that as much work as you do on the draft, Ryan, you probably have seen this as well, that there's just the concern that there's not that much depth at the top, at the first round, that maybe there's 12 guys who are worthy of first round picks and not the usual 15 to 18. And with NIL, that might be the case going forward, that it's just going to be fewer and fewer first round players. If you're the Chiefs and you're sitting at 9 and there's 12 legitimate first round players, okay, you're going to say you're going to get a first round player. But what if that's not a premium position first round player? What if the last 3 that are left are maybe an undersized defensive end, a safety, and maybe the number 2 receiver who's not 6'4"? I mean, there's a scenario in place where it's just not, there's maybe some first round talent available. It's just not the kind of talent that you need or fits any of your wants. And that's where, if you're the Chiefs, trading down probably becomes a legitimate option. Trading up is possibly an option. I just don't know how legitimate it is, since the Chiefs only have 6 picks. They'd love to have more. I think there's a reasonable chance that they end up with a couple of comp picks for next year, which is great based on this year's free agent class. But I'm just not sure that, there's a whole lot they can do outside of number 9 and outside of Trent McDuffie. I don't know if there's an opportunity to really get any premium draft capital back in return for anything that you have.
And I'll put that scenario even further. You talked about wide receiver 2. You talked about, defensive end. What if there's a running back that some people are going to say is a first round talent? I still don't think that the Chiefs would look at going that direction. Now, I could be completely wrong, but just on how they valued it since they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire, it doesn't seem to be like they would value taking a running back that high again. So to me, and that's maybe the most likely guy. But the other problem that you bring up when you talk about there only being 12 picks is, okay, how far are you willing to trade back if you have the number 9 pick? Because you're not going to get a first rounder anymore, more than likely, or a guy that you have ranked as a first rounder. How much are you willing to take, or how much are you willing to move back so you can go take a guy that you have a second round at best grade on?
Yeah, and this is gonna continue to be one of my favorite trivia questions until it gets answered a different way. But hey, who was the last rookie first round running back to win a Super Bowl with the team that drafted them? His name's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. First round running backs. I mean, the conventional wisdom of first round running backs is that they don't do anything for you, because they don't usually play up to their value, even if they're hits. And Jeremiah Love, top of the draft, even if he plays up to his talent level, he's might potentially live up to the contract, but more than likely, you're going to be paying money to a lot of running back who may not be as good as what you're paying him, even if he's decent, performer.
Yeah, that's the hardest part about that position.
Really quick, you talk about the contract. Think about what you're going to end up paying him on his contract if he's the number 9 overall pick, compared to you're paying him almost top of market of what you would be paying in a running back in the NFL for a rookie that hasn't ever played in the NFL, versus other positions that have more value that you'd normally be paying that type of money. I mean, it's a completely different scenario than taking a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, where you're paying him basically, decent starter money, I guess, is the way I would look at that.
For the record,
and that's the quick math of the equation, is that if you take a early first round running back, you're paying them top of the market running back money. That money, if put towards a defensive end or defensive lineman at number 9, you're paying them a third or less of what the top of the market is, and in theory, you're getting you're getting the best second best player in the draft at that position.
And that savings right there. The Chiefs are currently slotted. They will pay number 9 $5.64 million, regardless of what position it is. So that's where they're at, folks. Tomorrow, what's going on in the AFC West? What do we have to pay attention to, and how does that affect the Chiefs' plans? That's coming up. You can find more at ChiefsDigest.com and Chiefs Digest here on the platform, as well as 41 is the mic, where I look forward to hearing your ramblings, Matt, back and forth in all the scenarios. And I appreciate you sharing that and then sharing something different here. We always appreciate your wisdom and insight. Thank you, my friend.
I'm glad that you always mention ramblings when you talk to me, Ryan.
That's what I'm here for. That's the story of my life. If anyone's ever had to write or read what I've written, now you know why. So have a great one. We appreciate you guys being with us. Check out the Everydayer Club so you can get ad-free audio as well as our Discord. We will be back with you tomorrow and talk about the AFC West. Have a great one. We'll see you then.